Texas Natural Resources Code, section 86.012, subsection 10. Waste of natural gas is defined, among other ways, as the release of hydrocarbons into the atmosphere. That is in the jurisdiction and is the required jurisdiction of the Texas Railroad Commission to monitor, fix, correct, and where necessary, knock upside the head the company that has violated that. Waste of gas is when it releases into the atmosphere. As many of you know, and certainly the panel up here has a lot more brain power than I have, benzene is a hydrocarbon. It's an aromatic hydrocarbon. It's a little different structure, but it is a hydrocarbon. The Railroad Commission needs to get out there and assume and accept their responsibility for this. It is theirs. But their field inspectors have been told no by the commissioners. All three commissioners have thrown their hands up and said, we don't do air. Yes, they do. They have Rule 36 and several other rules that have monitored, controlled, and actually done a fairly good job at controlling hydrogen sulfide for over 95 years, after some towns in East Texas were wiped out in the 20s when hydrogen sulfide came out, puddled at night, and killed the town's residents. And they do a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but they have a big, extensive set of regulations on that gaseous emission from a well site. They can do the same thing. They have the ability, they have the capacity, and what I like and what I want to really push to have the Railroad Commission field inspectors getting out there do it is because they don't need to send out a 27-page inventory request for each operator, for each facility, telling me, where might you think things be leaking? Commission field inspectors can go out there and go, there. We're coming out next week with a FLIR camera. If we find leaks, we're going to pop you hard. And give them that leeway. Give them that marching order from the commissioners. It has to come from the commissioners. Give them those instructions to get them out there doing that. It won't solve everything, but it's another piece of this puzzle as other groups and other agencies get involved with this to get this taken care of. Because this is not some minor matter. I know we're talking a lot about air emissions, and a lot of the folks here have been talking about that, but the water there. One of the big issues with water produced from these wells, when this fracking fluid goes down, and it cracks open the shale, and then it returns as either return fluid or produced water later in the production cycle, it's full of chlorides. And so they dispose of it in an injection well. First they truck it out, unless you're really unlucky when they decide to build a pipeline and pipe it out. Why is that unlucky? They don't inspect water pipelines. The Railroad Commission does not inspect them because they're not pressurized. They're not dangerous. That's what the saying is. They won't blow up. That's what the saying is. It's in that transportation of these fluids that there's a lot of problems and a lot of issues, a lot of leaks, a lot of spills. Railroad Commission, the technology is there right now. I saw when they just came out this week and showed that GE had developed its own mechanism and system, on-site reclamation of this produced water, to where you can at least use that water again on the next frac job. Maybe not make it potable, but make it where you can use it again. We need to push that now. It's not, again, I heard someone else saying earlier that, okay, we've studied it. Okay, now it's time to start doing something about it. Okay? And I'm going to wrap up with this. I will only make a little campaign pitch. I'll do that later on. Is the Railroad Commission was always known as an innovator. It was always on the leading edge of things, on safety regulations too. It was something that Texas really had to be proud of. And now, unfortunately, it's occupied by potted plants and folks who want to run for Senate and people who aren't really interested. The workers on the Railroad Commission are by and large good folks, by and large. Except, do they return phone calls very often? No, they don't do that. But that's another thing. That's something that leadership from the commissioners can really push forward. And really, if you get that kind of hard work mentality going at the commission, it'll spread. It will become an epidemic. But you push on that, and you lead from above, and you get the commission being innovative in looking into best practices, in looking into pushing on these things. In the situation, I'll wrap up with one little example on this. Vapor recovery units on gathering devices. It's not always the appropriate way to do it, but often it is. Often it's the best way to do it. So when they vent out, they have little vents on top of these tanks to keep the pressure from building up. Put a vapor recovery unit on there. Often they'll pay for themselves. Start looking into doing that. And if the operators yell and scream too much about it, economics problem, number one. Number two, the legislature has had a history of being amenable to, in the early 1990s when they passed the Clean Air Act, they did the revisions to the Clean Air Act that dealt with power plants. The Texas legislature allowed a carve out of some of the severance taxes that were going to go into the rainy day fund to help those power plants pay for the equipment they had to put on for the Clean Air Act. Look at innovative ways like that. If it's just uneconomical to do it, then well, I won't go into that long diatribe. But there are things you can do that are innovative, that are upfront, that you can take action now, and that's one of the things I hope to bring to the Commission.
Thank you, Judge.